This has been a three-part series with Kevin Mills, the author of the book, The Day the Church Died, a fictional account that has a lot of truth in it. Fascinating book, a book that I read before it was published and just said, man, this is going to be a good one. And we're delighted to interview him because he knows a lot about the church. He's been a faithful pastor, a faithful missionary. He knows this world, and we want to hear from him. But we really want to hear about this book as well. We're about to, if you did not listen or view to the previous episodes, the episodes are 211, 212, and this one is 213. So I was referring to them in a previous episode as 1, 2, 3. No, 211, 212, and 213 are the episodes for the whole series dealing with the day the church died. As always, we thank Cheney and Associates, the accounting firm for the church, the accounting firm for over 1,100 churches, the accounting firm that is always putting all of their data in the cloud. They never lose anything. And every time I recommend someone from a church to have their church use Cheney for bookkeeping and accounting services, they come back and say thank you. They don't talk about cost at all. They just say this has been one of the most beneficial things we have done. So look in the show notes for Cheney and Associates, and go to my friends there, and particularly Steve Cheney, the CEO and founder of the company. Well, Kevin, we're to the third episode here, and I thought the audience would enjoy hearing from you on writing a fiction book. We've had Jess on to talk about just the whole idea of publishing, particularly his company, Craft Publishing. And if you want to go to Craft Publishing, you can see that in the notes as well. Jess has become his company continues to grow. Kevin was actually one of his earlier customers and made some recommendations that became customers of Jess as well. But instead of talking about Jess and Craft Publishing, you can go to the notes and find that out. I want to find out about writing a fiction book. You've written nonfiction, but now this one. Let's start off with what made you decide to write it as a fiction book.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I decided to write it. I did not sit down and say, I'd like to write a fictional book. What should it be about? It was dealing with the topic and then trying to figure out how to best describe the trends and everything that's happening that eventually I almost stumbled into writing a fictional book. The reason was I wanted to really paint a picture that would help people see what is going on. You know, it's in an earlier episode, I told you that I was in Guatemala last week. So if I tell you that 50% of the children in Guatemala are starving, you know, that stat may just wash over you. But if I tell you about a little boy and going into his house and dirt floors and no electricity, you began to feel compassion for this little boy. And so the story format was to really get people to feel where we are headed as a church and as a culture. And hopefully I was able to achieve that. So the fictional format happened almost by accident.
I'm going to piggyback on a shameless promotion, Kevin. Of course, I'm not beyond shameless promotions at any time. We're releasing this series of podcasts on August 8th. So, you know, if this is August 8th and you're listening to it, this is brand new. Well, in relation to August 8th, 5 days earlier, I released my first fiction book. And don't know how it's going to do, but it's called Where Have All the Church Members Gone? And it is a fictional book in the writing style of Patrick Lencioni, if you've ever read his. And the reason I wrote a story is not that different than yours, but I wanted pastors to be able to put something in the hands of church members where they could understand principles and things that are going on that church leaders may read from a statistical or research or major principle point of view. And so I told a story of a church in Roseville, North Carolina. Roseville is real, but this church is not. And I told that story, and it's a very similar reason. So you've got The Day the Church Died. I've got a similar uplifting title, Where Have All the Church Members Gone? And so both of us have contributed to the doldrums of church leaders today. So thank you for doing that, Kevin. And
Yeah.
Sam, I
They'll
mean,
be
Jess, I'm
thoroughly
sorry.
depressed by the time it's over.
Jess, I'll turn. Sam is my co-host on the other podcast, and so I accidentally called Jess Sam. So I don't think you've been insulted that I called you by your big brother's name, but
No, that is
I know
slightly
you have.
insulting.
Yeah, I guess I would be too, because you are the favorite rainer of most of favorite rainer male anyway.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
most people.
I mean, Art would have been a little better, but yeah, the fact you call me Sam, that hurts a little bit more. But I have not written a fiction book, so I'm I'm the one coming from the mindset of, if I'm hearing this podcast, I'm thinking, what would that be like? I have had the chance to write nonfiction, but the idea of like, how would I even begin? Like, and obviously you said, Kevin, you stumbled upon this, but having wrote fiction and nonfiction, are there any fundamental differences? Obviously, besides the fact one's fiction, one's nonfiction, but in terms of writing and prep and, looking at the overall picture, what are the major differences you would say more in the writing process that took place for this book compared to other books?
Yeah, so normally I would say the two major differences in writing fiction and nonfiction is that the work on nonfiction is in the research and making sure that you're getting the information correctly. Now you have to communicate it, you have to craft it in a way that's easy to understand, but the majority of your work is on the informational side. In a fiction book, normally the majority of the work is on the creative side, and so you're having to create this story, this world. You're having to create these scenarios, and so that's where the majority of the work comes. You guys have read this book, and in this particular book, I had both of those happening, and so I felt like I really had the labor from both of those happening in this particular book.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah. To think about all the information that I typically write, when I'm writing in a nonfiction way, but trying to put that in with a creative story, that would be a lot of work, but also that'd have to be a lot of fun. So if you could give me advice, say I wanted to write a fiction book, I wanted to do what you've done. And I'm thinking if there's listeners out there that are probably in the same position I am, what would be the advice? Like, how would you even begin the process? Like, what would be some key elements that you would give me to say, Jess, if you're going to start writing a fictional book, here's a few things that you need to take consideration to?
Yes, I would say number one, ask yourself the question, why do you want to write the book? And if the answer to that question is to make loads of money, let me caution you that yes, that can happen occasionally, but it's rare. I've spent many years coaching Little League Baseball, and every kid on my team, without exception, believes that they will play Major League Baseball, and because of where I am, they will all play for the Atlanta Braves. Well, in reality, it's about one in a decade from our town that makes it to the major leagues. So I don't want to crush their dreams. I don't want to tell them, no, you're never going to make it to the majors. But the reality is you're probably not. Sure, there are the John Grishams out there. There are those who have really made a career out of writing fiction, but it's fairly rare. So if that's your answer, I would just caution you on that. But there are plenty of reasons to write fiction, even if you do not become the next best-selling author. If you're a pastor of a church, it may be the best way to communicate to your congregation certain truths, and you can use it for a Bible study. You can use it for small groups in your church. I love small groups. I love churches that really emphasize small groups. And churches respond typically very well to something that has been written by their pastor. And it may be that if you have a gift, if you're creative, and you write some kind of study, like the shameless plug that Thom had on his book, and just the way he communicated those truths by using a fictional church in North Carolina, you might could do the same to communicate whatever sort of principles or truths you're trying to communicate. And there may be other reasons as well. Just think about it may be that you want to write something and it's a legacy for your family. But I would begin with that. Ask those questions And then from there, you begin to write the manuscript, go to the people you trust, ask them for help, advice. I had many people on this book that would read drafts and give me feedback, honest feedback. Go to more than just your spouse. Go to more than just the person that's going to tell you what you want to hear, and then go from there. And once you're done, call Craft Publishing, and you'll be good to go.
There you go.
I love these plugs. They're not shameless for me. I love it.
That is good. And by the way, Kevin's book about leading small groups is one of the best out there. Jess, you actually said that before. About 6 months ago, you used the book in your church?
Well, it's now how I train all my small group leaders. So anytime you're going to become a small group leader at my church, you're going to go through that book. You're going to go through the training. 100%. It is absolutely fantastic. And all of our groups that have started that have gone through the training are thriving. So Kevin, just, as a effect of the book, we have more thriving small groups now because of what you wrote.
Well, and just to let y'all know, we're talking about two books. So we're talking about his fictional book, The Day the Church Died. We're talking about his nonfiction book on leading small groups, which is kind of a PS on here, but you needed to hear it because he's been very effective in the nonfiction area. I have no doubt that this great new entree is going to be well received too. Kevin, I know that you're on the road. You're somewhere in Alabama. Your church is in Macon, Georgia, so you're not too far away. But thank you for being here, especially after you told us that you were at a camp last week and had some type of stomach problem, just like Jess was at a camp 2 weeks ago and had stomach problems. I'm not going to camp. But thank you for being here, Kevin.
Thank you for having me, Thom and Jess.
Well, as always, we thank you for listening and viewing the Church Answers podcast. We serve you, and we are delighted to serve you, the listener and viewer. And let us know how we can improve things. Give us the ratings and reviews. Give us the thumbs up. But at the same time, stay in touch with us. Make a comment if you have something that you want to say or something that you want to ask. We're here for you, and we'll be continuing to release these short burst podcasts 3 a week. Jess is with me most of the time, and we're delighted that we had Kevin Mills with us this time. As always, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next week, hopefully, as you continue to be a part of the Church Answers podcast.